Folks, a second bonus episode this week. Today, we wanted to bring you this extra episode because we're speaking with Judge John Wilson. Now, who's Judge John Wilson? Well, first, he's wrote a book called The Making of a Martyr. And this goes into the many, many cases against our former president, Donald Trump, from the Alvin Bragg Manhattan case to the raid on Mar A Lago to the RICO charges to Jack Smith's case in Washington, D.C. He is a guy in the know. He has over 30 years of experience. He was both a defense attorney and a prosecutor and then a judge in the Bronx, in New York. So he's very close to it. He's reviewed it all. He's wrote a book about it. He's here to tell us what exactly is going on in these cases, both the pros and cons for the prosecution and the defense. But we wanted to bring a special episode because it's an hour and it's a quick hour. I mean, he is in the know and he knows it. So take a listen to that, Jim, and everybody, and we will be back to wrap this up.
Welcome to the Two Guys, One Coup podcast with Dale and Jim, where the truth matters and progressives' feelings don't. We bring you the facts from the perspective of two average, everyday guys who will never apologize for being America first, for adhering to our great Constitution, and for saluting the flag that our brothers and sisters have fought and died for. And now, here's Dale and Jim.
Today for us to have on the show John Wilson. Who's John Wilson? Well, he's had 30 years of experience in the legal world, mainly as a judge and an attorney, I think both for defense and prosecution. He's written a book, and it's called The Making of a Martyr. And this book examines in depth the pros and cons of the four cases against President Donald Trump, from the Fani Willis Georgia case, RICO charges, to the Alvin Bragg case in Manhattan, which I think we'll end up starting with, to Jack Smith's case. It goes into all of them, and there's pros and cons, and he's going to kind of let us know what those might be for both the prosecution and the defense. But we couldn't think of anybody better who would know about it. He's written about it. He's got the experience. He's a New Yorker in the Bronx, I believe, if I'm not wrong. So he's in the middle of it all, and was a night court judge. So maybe we'll get some stories out of him from there. But John, Your Honor, it's an honor to have you here with us. We thank you so much. Let's start off with the book. Let's look at that. The Making of a Martyr. I'm certain a reason why you felt the need to write a book like this. Yeah, give it a show. You can find it on Amazon, folks. I'll have the posts and the links up there. Absolutely seems like an incredible book to read. Unfortunately, I haven't, or Jim hasn't yet, but we shall do that. And well, at least Jim will. I'll wait for the movie.
Yeah, I will do it.
Yeah. I'm a movie guy, Judge. Let's talk about what made you decide to write the book, first of all, and then we can go into your experience and talk a little bit about these cases that are from the layman's eye, which is Jim and I clearly. We see it all as political driven. We don't see where the case or crimes are. Maybe you can help us out with that. But again, welcome to the show. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Dale. It's a real pleasure to be here with you both.
Thank you.
And yes, I've been involved in the legal process in New York for 30 years. I'm born and raised in Bronx, New York. I was a assistant district attorney in Bronx County. I also was a criminal defense lawyer and was elected to the bench in 2004. Served 10-year term until 2014. Why did I write this book? Well, as I watched the indictments of Donald Trump occurring one after the other, I wanted to use some of my skills as a lawyer, as a judge, to examine the legal aspects. See, when a case like this is in court, the judge and the prosecutor and the defense lawyer look at it from the standpoint of, are these charges, can they be established? Are they not sufficient legally? What is the evidence for these charges? We look at it without the political end of it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, clearly the motivations are political. We that's not even worth arguing about.
Correct. Yeah.
But
Correct.
legally, are the prosecutions able to establish these charges
Mm-hmm.
with sufficient evidence? I read each of the indictments, and I went through an analysis. In the book, there's at least 3 to 4 chapters devoted to an examination of each of these indictments and what their
Mm-hmm.
strengths are, what their weaknesses are. I overwhelmingly found that most of the indictments are weak. They can't be established sufficiently. I mean, to give you an example, in the Jack Smith
Mm-hmm.
January 6th indictment, you have to get into Donald Trump's head
Correct.
to understand whether or not he knew that he'd lost the election or not. From all accounts, it would appear that Donald Trump absolutely believes that voter fraud is the reason he lost that
Mm-hmm.
election,
Mm-hmm.
and could not be dissuaded from that opinion, whether it was reasonable or not. We're not even
Correct.
looking at that aspect. It's how do you establish that Donald Trump was lying when he said this election was stolen from me?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
not only is that an element of proof for the Jack Smith January 6th indictment, it's also an element of proof for the Fani Willis, I refuse to call her Fani,
Mm-hmm.
the Willis prosecution in Georgia.
Yeah.
Those 2 indictments actually tend to track each other very closely.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm.
Going back to the New York indictments, the one that's on trial now,
Mm-hmm.
to date, no one has been able to establish what law it is that Donald Trump is alleged to have broken.
Correct.
I mean, technically, the allegation is that he falsified his business records, and that's a misdemeanor. And
Yes.
to elevate that to a felony charge, the falsification needed to be done to protect himself from charges, another crime.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Okay.
what is that other crime? It has
Correct.
not been specified yet. And I've never seen a case go to trial, never, where the DA isn't forced to specify exactly what the defendant has done illegally.
Correct.
So
Okay.
I'm glad you clarified that.
Yes.
I'm glad you. Yeah.
It's and it's a point that's been made by the few media commentators that understand. I think Jonathan Turley is probably one of the
Perfect example.
Yep.
Yeah.
better
Yep.
commentators who understands and can convey legally what the problem is. Getting back to the book, my intention was to explain this to lay people.
Yes.
I didn't want to write
Okay.
a legal treatise. This isn't another law review article. I tried to cut down on the legalese, and I really try to explain to people what these charges are about. You know, some legalese is going to be necessary. I have to talk about things like
Sure.
facial sufficiency and concepts like that. But I really try to make sure that I explain it so that it's readable, so that people can understand just what
Yeah.
nonsense this is that's going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That makes perfect sense.
So let me ask you real quick: the Alvin Bragg indictment. Okay, we're on what, 5th week now?
Yes.
Yeah.
And so let me ask you this question before we get into some of the meat and potatoes, because should a case like this take this long? I mean, is this normal, or because we all know that they're trying to keep him from campaigning, right?
Yeah.
So should this trial, because we're looking at another week or 2, maybe? I mean,
minimum.
Possibly. Today is supposed to be the day that the prosecution rests.
It is supposed to.
Yes, and I don't know that the prosecution, the defense should bother with even putting on a defense. I mean, right now, I don't know that the jury's had anything that could lead them to a conviction. Again, I don't think I've heard a single fact that establishes any law that Donald Trump broke.
Correct.
And keep in mind, Donald Trump is the defendant, not his organization, not his employees. If his employees categorized and classified how these payments were to be made, unless he directed them specifically, and the accountant who testified that he's the one who made the classification testified, I had no conversation with Donald Trump regarding that classification.
Yeah.
And so I don't know how you relate it back. Now, Michael Cohen, of course, is trying to say that Donald Trump authorize everything that was done. Even if he did, and let's take that for instance, maybe for once Michael Cohen is telling the truth, and
maybe
that Donald Trump did authorize the payment. First, he did it for more than one reason. He didn't do it to just for the election.
correct.
He also did it to protect his own family.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a criminal motivation for.
I was going to ask. That's not a criminal offense, right? None of this is illegal in any way.
No,
I don't think there's any. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
It may be sleazy, in its own.
Mm-hmm.
That's politics.
It's unseemly, but none of that is illegal. Those activities are not illegal.
In your opinion, do you think, based on the fact that we probably can assume and have heard, at least from Bob Costello, who was Conan's attorney, who gave an absolutely amazing talk during congressional hearings yesterday, which got no airplay, by the way. Of course not. I don't know what you know about Bob Costello or not about him, and that's not my question, but would he be, based on his knowledge and his dealings with Michael Cohen and the FBI and everybody else involved, would he be a good witness for the defense, do you think? Or you're saying don't even bother, because pretty much Cohen and Stormy Daniels and everybody else has pretty much been, as Jim would say, they have been the best witnesses for the defense, to be honest with you. So
when one of the rules of practicing law is when you're ahead, quit.
Yeah,
and
right.
Very often I've tried a case where the prosecution did not establish their facts.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe the judge doesn't want to take it out of the hands of a jury. And that happens. This is a case where the judge most likely should. I don't think there's been any fact established to substantiate the charges, so the judge probably should direct the verdict, but he's not going to. We know that.
No. Yep.
But there's no reason to give the jury more than just what they've gotten from the prosecution.
Correct.
Here. Why give the prosecution a chance to resurrect its case?
Mm-hmm.
And so right now, the Trump lawyers can argue to the jury that the prosecution, who has the burden of proof, has not met that burden of proof, and that you must acquit when the burden of proof has not been met. And that burden of proof is high. It's beyond a reasonable doubt.
Mm-hmm.
And so
we have we have 80, what we think is 87% of the jury, what I've heard, has voted for Joe Biden. I mean, listen, we know where it's happening. It's right in Manhattan. We kind of figured this was going to happen, but in a case like this, not to acquit, but maybe send it back to, is it a possibility? Because we've heard, and I don't know this to be true, to send it back to a lower court or not fully acquit, but like kind of like hung jury type of situation?
You're talking about a hung jury, and a hung jury is a possibility. You have two lawyers on the jury, and I actually have hope for those two lawyers that they're looking at each other and listening to this evidence and saying there's nothing here, and that they're able to possibly guide the other jurors in understanding that fact that there's nothing here, and that the prosecution has not established a sufficient case.
Yep.
Even if, let's take the worst case scenario, let's say that Donald Trump is convicted of these crimes, the case then goes up on appeal, and I don't think the appellate division will do much for him. That's the intermediate court in New York. But I do believe that the Court of Appeals will treat him fairly, and I base that on the recent decision in the Harvey Weinstein appeal, where Weinstein's conviction was overthrown. Now, if I could talk about that briefly, that's a very important decision from the Court of Appeals.
Yes,
it angered, of course, all the Me Too advocates, but as they've been throughout their history, they're not reasonable.
Correct.
That Weinstein appeal decision does have some impact on the Trump case. As I address in the book, In the Making of a Martyr, I do discuss the statute of limitations issue, because one of the first issues that a lot of people feel aggrieved about with the Trump New York case is, well, isn't it past the statute of limitations? But under New York law, if you're out of New York State for whatever reason, not that you're
Mhm.
fleeing the jurisdiction, but you're just out of the state,
Mhm.
that time stops the statute of limitations from running.
Mhm.
So that was an aspect of the law they used against Harvey Weinstein, that he was
Mhm.
out of New York. So they
Mhm.
were able to resurrect a 2017 incident against him.
Gotcha.
Actually, I think it was 2013 was the incident. Whatever it
Mhm.
was
Yeah.
should have been long past the statute of limitations. It wasn't, because he
Mhm.
was out of New York for extended periods of time.
Mhm.
The Court of Appeals ruled that that reading of New York law is correct.
Mhm.
That the time that Donald Trump spent serving the
Mhm.
country as president of the United States can be used against him to let this
On
case continue past what we would think was statute of limitation. Doesn't sound fair, but that is New York law on
wow.
that issue, and that will
Mhm.
impact. That's one of the aspects of the case that's a strength for the prosecution.
Mhm.
However, and this is why I have confidence in the Court of Appeals, 3 witnesses were allowed to testify against Harvey Weinstein, and none of
Mhm.
those witnesses have brought charges against him. These were
Oh.
uncharged crimes, and these persons testified to his sexual assaults on them.
Mhm.
That information was used just to make Weinstein look bad,
Okay.
and prevent him from being able to effectively testify in his own defense
Mhm.
before the
Mhm.
jury.
Yeah.
That was the basis for the reversal of Weinstein's conviction.
Okay.
Same thing can happen with Trump. Stormy
Mhm.
Daniels was put on the stand for no other reason but to try to embarrass him, to
Correct.
add fallacious facts to the evidence,
Mhm.
and to also prevent Trump from testifying.
Correct.
In fact, much of the evidence that's been brought in is an effort, and much of the anticipated evidence that would be used against Trump where he'd testify are uncharged matters
Yes.
that are just being used to make him look bad.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
that if he is convicted, that I believe will lead to a reversal of that conviction. Of course,
Good.
we get back to the political aspect. These opponents of Trump just want the conviction so they can tout it during the
Yep.
elections and try to use it to stop him from becoming president again.
Correct.
You know,
Absolutely.
it's a problem.
Yep.
So
That's it.
so
That's what it is.
the Jack Smith trials. Let's start with the one in DC. All right. A simple question,
Where did
because
it begin?
I have yet to hear him,
Mhm.
anybody, I have yet to hear him actually say, go to the Capitol, storm the Capitol,
Mhm.
go in there and force your way in. All I heard him say was peacefully go down and protest your civil rights to do so peacefully.
Mhm.
Is there anything here? You added that there are some things that look like could be,
Mhm.
but then there's others that just are not. So the easiest question that I want to ask on this, because we've heard all different things, is this the Washington D.C.? Is this a legitimate where this could get something? Could this could have some teeth?
I'll only say no for a couple of reasons, although it probably will proceed further than it should based
Mhm.
upon the judge.
Yep.
Donald Trump was impeached for these very same facts,
Mhm.
for inciting an insurrection, and he was acquitted.
Mhm.
Now, there's been a lot of people who feel, isn't that double jeopardy? I can tell you it's most likely not.
Okay.
I'll tell you why. Because an impeachment is a different proceeding with a different purpose
Okay.
than a federal trial. In a federal trial, you're trying to assess the guilt or innocence of a person. In an impeachment, you're just trying to determine whether or not he's qualified to sit as
Mhm.
in office, whether he should be removed from office. So there are different purposes in the two functions.
Yes.
I don't believe that any court is going to hold that the impeachment is a double jeopardy.
Mhm.
Also, keep in mind the impeachment was not presided over by Justice Roberts. He
Correct.
declined.
Mhm.
So again, it's kind of a kangaroo farcical
Mhm.
thing that happened without
Correct. Yeah.
Judge Roberts's cooperation.
Yeah.
So in that respect, the case would be allowed to proceed.
Mhm.
As far as the facts, yes, you have an equivocal point of view here. You don't have facts beyond a reasonable doubt
Mhm.
that Donald Trump led any insurrection. In fact, right from the beginning, how do you even call it an insurrection? It's a
Correct.
riot.
Mhm.
nobody was trying to take over the government. And if they were outliers in not being directed by Donald Trump to do so. So the evidence fails in many respects. But let's go back to who the judge is. Just like the judge in New York, Judge Chutkan is not going to hear this case fairly.
Nope.
She's been the judge for the majority of the January 6th defendants.
Correct.
She's issued harsher sentences, and I talk about this in the book as well.
Do you? Okay.
She's issued harsher sentences to January 6th defendants than the other judges who've handled January 6th cases. And worst of all, while sentencing some of these defendants, she made comments that they're the wrong people to be before her, that in fact she would have preferred that the person who's responsible for you being in this court be here before me. They're the one that should be going to jail.
Wow.
Well, who's she talking about?
Who's she talking about?
Donald Trump.
And she's the one that's hearing the case?
Yes.
Yes.
She's the one presiding over it.
She was asked to recuse herself. Looks like Judge Buchan has been asked to recuse himself by the Trump attorneys. So also has Judge Chutkan. And she said, oh, no, I can be fair. My comments during those sentencings don't reflect my view of the case, which is utter nonsense, quite frankly. There's another concept I want to make your listeners familiar with. And it's not just the impropriety of a judge who's made comments like that hearing the case. It's the appearance of impropriety. And a judge is obligated to avoid even the appearance of impropriety.
Right.
I'll give you, for instance, at Christmas time, people would come to my bench and hand me an envelope. And it was a Christmas card. But I made sure to open up that envelope in full view of the courtroom so people could see that all I was getting was a Christmas card, not somebody slipping me an envelope.
Yep.
It's the appearance of impropriety. You know, I'm not getting anything other than a Christmas card, but I don't want somebody in the audience to look at that and go, oh, look, somebody's giving
slipping them $100, you know, or whatever. Yeah.
It's the same concept. You want to avoid the appearance of impropriety. Judge Buchan, for instance, has a daughter that's a Democratic operative.
And making millions off of this.
Doesn't that seem like that would be improper? Let me tell you a little something about what happened there. Judge Buchan was asked to recuse himself from the case on this basis, but he got an opinion from the Ethics Commission, the Judicial Ethics Commission in New York. And a judge can ask the Ethics Commission in New York for a ruling on whether or not their actions are ethical. And that is per se evidence. That's evidence the judge can rely on that his actions are ethical. And that board said in a decision that the judge quotes that there's nothing unethical about him hearing this case. His daughter's not a witness. She's not a party to the case. So there's nothing wrong with him listening to a case that his daughter is profiting from.
Yes. Yes.
So, I mean, we can debate what's behind the decision like that. But he got that decision. He can rely on that decision. But what about the appearance of impropriety? You have a daughter who's profiting off of a case that you're hearing.
Yes.
To me, that's the appearance of impropriety. And that appearance should be avoided. And he should recuse himself from the case. But of course, he's not going to.
He donated to the Biden campaign.
He gave a very small donation. I'm glad you brought that up. He donated both to the Biden campaign, maybe $20.
Yeah.
And he gave another donation through Act Blue. He gave donations to a couple other anti-Republican organizations.
Correct.
The total of his campaign contributions were around $35.
Oh.
The problem is this. When he gave those donations, he identified himself as a judge and said that his employer was the Office of Court Administration. So ethical rules bar a judge from making any campaign contribution in any amount. You can't make contributions to any political organizations. The only exception is when you're actually running for office yourself.
Yes. Yeah.
And then there's what's called a window period where you can make contributions. But he wasn't in that window period. He wasn't running for office. He was barred. But the only excuse we've heard so far is, oh, well, they're minimal amounts. You know, what's the difference?
That's what you hear.
Period.
Yep. Not supposed to do it at all. So is that? Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm glad you mentioned that because I didn't know the total and I didn't know the basis behind what they're allowed to do, what they're not allowed to do. So I'm very glad you brought that up. the question, going back to the Bragg, because that's just the one that's, forefront right at the moment, and we can
The
go
one on
Fani
her face
Willis.
right now.
Yeah, that's the one in the face, and you've got all of Trump supporters out there speaking, and his friends, and you got Vivek Ramaswamy and Speaker Johnson and all these people, Doug Burgum, they're all out there talking. They're not allowed to talk in the court, so of course they come out and they hold these press conferences to kind of let you know exactly what's going on in there, and that's due to the fact that there's a gag order. Now, I want to go into the gag order a little bit. I don't know. Again, I know as much about law as I've seen on Law and Order, right? I can scream, I object, and I hope to do that sometime during this interview. But how can they constitutionally do that when you have Michael Cohen on TikTok and you got Stormy Daniels doing interviews, and Stormy Daniels' attorney is just spewing out all this stuff, but yet the defendant can't defend himself in the public eye? Is there nothing unlawful about this?
So Michael Cohen and Stormy Daniels are not the defendants.
Yeah,
So
I get that.
There isn't a gag order against them. However, the gag order is against Trump because he is a defendant, and the theory, keep in mind, this is the theory, that he as a defendant could intimidate the witnesses against him. So if he makes comments about those witnesses, that he could dissuade them from testifying truthfully. That's the theory. Why a gag order would remain in effect after those witnesses have testified does not make any sense at all. Is the gag order constitutional? I have my doubts. I haven't reviewed the gag order fully. I haven't done the research on the gag order yet. That's something I'm going to be working on. But I do believe this gag order is overbroad. And I do believe that it probably should be limited in some fashion. I've never seen a gag order where a defendant is not able to comment about the witnesses after they've already testified. There's no threat of intimidation at that point. They've already testified.
Yep, correct.
So a gag order of that broader nature doesn't make any constitutional sense to me.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Was you wondering?
So let's say the trial's over. Everyone closes their arguments. They do their closing arguments, right? So then it gets into the hand of the jury. The jury comes out, and let's do a couple scenarios here. I personally think it's going to be a hung jury. I think there's going to be one or two people out there that they don't care. They don't like the guy. So he's guilty no matter what. Yeah. So, but let's go the other way. Let's say 12 jurors guilty. I mean, what we know the appellate court's probably going to, assist him, if you will. But what can we make of that, Judge, if we outside, and I know everyone says you're not in there, you don't hear the whole arguments, you don't hear all this, you don't hear all that, but what are we to take of that if they do come back guilty, all 12 of them guilty?
Well, we can estimate that the prosecution did its job and selected the jury that they wanted, that they saw something in the jurors that they were able to speak to and were able to convince, which is a prosecutor's job. So I can't fault.
No,
not at all. Right.
That leads to the conclusion that they want them to lead.
Correct.
To. That's what I did as a prosecutor, and as a defense lawyer, I tried to get jurors who were going to listen to my side more intently. So
that's the
I
game.
Can't fault
that's
the
way.
system for that.
Yep.
Yeah, I can't fault the system for that happening. What I can fault is right from the beginning that this is a jury that did not have a crime that they didn't have sufficient evidence of a crime actually occurring. And again, let me emphasize, it's the felony charge I'm talking about in particular. The felony charge is falsifying business records to conceal another crime. And to date, that other crime has not been specified.
Correct.
So you can't give a jury, hey, he committed a crime. You figure out which one it is. That's not how it works.
Yeah, it's not their job. Right.
Yeah, correct.
That's what they're being forced to do at this point by this court and by this prosecution. They're being handed a case and being told, you figure out which crime it is you think he committed. We're not able to specify it for you. That's not how this works. And I do believe that would lead to appellate decision in Donald Trump's favor.
Yeah. I mean, I guess, so I got a two-parter here. They come back guilty. It's not jail time, right? It's just a convict. There's not, I mean, there could be. Am I wrong? I mean, is there jail time? There could be.
The people are howling for his blood. I wouldn't be surprised if the judge wants to sentence him to something. A year, 2 years, whatever he comes up with.
Jesus. Are you kidding me?
Not surprising.
Well,
no, it would not surprise me. No. Does he actually go to that jail time? And if you want me to answer that before you get to the second part of your question.
Yes, please. Yep.
Yep. If convicted, Donald Trump has the right to go to the appellate courts and ask for, and he can ask the trial court this as well. He can ask for bond pending appeal. He can actually be left out. He's come to court every time. He's never missed a court appearance. So he is an excellent candidate to be either released without bond, that won't happen, or to have a bond set so that he can remain at liberty while he appeals. The trial court may deny that. That would be grandstanding. But the appellate courts are more likely to grant some bond, keeping him out of jail while the appeal goes on. Usually that occurs at sentencing. What the judge can do, that is an awful case of grandstanding, is when a person is convicted, they no longer have the presumption of innocence. So a judge can remand, can put a person in jail for a short time period. For a short time period while they're setting up their bond. And usually they would hold the defendant on that remand, no bond. While they're getting ready for sentencing. Sentencing, not like TV. Sentencing doesn't occur on the same day. Usually you need to do a sentencing investigation of the defendant and prepare for the sentencing. So that usually takes a couple of weeks.
Wow.
So it's entirely possible that Donald Trump
I can't even imagine.
Wow.
I can't even imagine. I mean, you think 75 million? That's going to be 125 million voters who are going to be.
That's the danger of that, of course.
That's the danger of it, but they don't care if he can't run. What's it matter to them? Well,
think about it. He can run. There's nothing in the Constitution prohibits him from running. And just like a third world country, we'd have a candidate running from jail.
Yes,
who has the possibility of winning as a protest against the regime. Can that happen? Of course it can happen. Absolutely. And Donald Trump would play that up for
he'd play that. Oh, for sure. Absolutely. Absolutely.
The question
would. Hey, let me ask my second part. Jim, let me ask my second part.
I thought you already asked the second
part.
No,
I didn't. Well, because this is going towards the Michael Cohen testimony. It was, and before I forget, Jim, so I apologize, but he testified, he brought tapes, he secretly recorded his client, which is legal in New York. It's a one party way. I don't know how they call that, but it's they're legally, he could do that. Now that's sketchy and scumbaggy, but that's Michael Cohen. My question is all the tapes that we know, that we've heard, and everything we've seen so far led to, hey, Michael Cohen basically said, I took care of this. I'm taking care of all this. Trump saying, okay, he's listening to his client. So I equate it to, how is that even a possibility that Donald Trump, one, is guilty for it when you're listening to your attorney and trusting your attorney to do it? If I'm in high school and I'm a senior and I have a guy, I go to a guidance counselor and he says, Dale, you're going to make the best brain surgeon in the world. That's the direction you should go. I get through college. And then all of a sudden I'm killing, 3 people because I'm just absolutely a buffoon at brain surgery. Is that the guidance counselor's fault? Or is it, I just don't understand the whole scenario here.
So this is a good argument on Donald Trump's behalf. First of all, it is utterly unseemly for a lawyer to be recording his client without that client's consent. I mean, do lawyers do that? Yeah, of course they do. We go back to President Nixon recording everybody who came into his office.
Correct.
And not telling any of them that he was recording them.
Yep.
It's been done, I guess is the best way to describe that. What was his purpose in making these recordings? Sounds like he was trying to make sure he had dirt on Donald Trump if he ever
Sure
needed
is.
it.
Yep.
It's showing again how disreputable he is as a
Yep.
person, let alone as an attorney.
Yep.
But I still think those recordings, from what I've heard of them, are pretty equivocal. They do have Donald Trump expressing some concern about this story getting out, affecting
Yes.
his election possibilities.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, he's also expressing a concern for his family and for his
Yes.
wife,
Mm-hmm.
which is not an illegal concern.
Correct.
So again, the tapes aren't the smoking gun that I think Michael Cohen and his testimony was intended to be.
Correct.
In fact, I thought in the end his testimony fell kind of flat.
Mm-hmm.
His credibility issues really hurt his
Yeah.
testimony extraordinarily. There's a doctrine at law called falsus et uno.
Okay.
You can disregard a witness's testimony in part or in whole when that witness's credibility is not established.
Mm-hmm.
So if the witness tells a falsehood and the falsehood is established, you can choose to disregard all of that witness's testimony. You can take the parts that you find are true.
Mm-hmm.
So the jury can believe that Michael Cohen did act at the behest of Donald Trump here.
Mm-hmm.
But was that an illegal act? That's still a question mark. And at this point in the prosecution's case, that should not still be a question mark.
Correct. Yep. Jim, go ahead. I'm sorry. Yep.
The lawyer, I believe it was Stormy Daniels' lawyer that went on. I think it was before Stormy or one other, whatever you call witness for the defense. Now, if everything that came out of this was correct, was this a very poor defense witness to put up there? The individual that said that after the election, Cohen was so upset that Trump didn't put him in his office or attorney general or things like that, that he was suicidal.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, is that, would that not, you as a defense, you don't want to put a witness up there that says that, because now the jury's going to think, okay, this is personal.
Mm-hmm.
He's making this personal.
The witnesses that have testified so far have all been for the prosecution.
Yes.
There hasn't been a defense
Yeah,
witness.
I'm sorry, prosecution. I'm sorry, I said that wrong. The prosecution
The
witness.
defense hasn't opened up yet. It's still prosecution. We've seen a series of witnesses testify for the prosecution that have backfired on the prosecution.
Yes.
They've established facts that were in Donald Trump's favor. Now, you take your witness, you find them. You're going to have witnesses in any prosecution that will inadvertently say something favorable for the defendant. The trick is to get the witnesses who say more that establish the facts you want to prove than establish defenses for the defendant. Here in Stormy Daniels' testimony regarding Michael Cohen's suicidal nature, if whoever testified to that, that hurts his credibility. And that's something that the defense on cross-examination can use against Michael Cohen. Say, Mr. Cohen, were you suicidal that you wouldn't get? He'll, of course, deny it.
Yeah.
But then you go around that by asking him other questions. Well, how did you feel about it? How, what actions did you take afterwards? And you felt betrayed by Mr. Trump, didn't you? And there's a way to establish that fact if he won't come right out and say, yes, I was suicidal. If another witness says he's suicidal, that's just an opinion. That's not necessarily
correct. But I just wondered what the 12 jurors would think of that, saying this seems vindictive to us, you know. And
there's a lot more evidence of Michael Cohen's vindictiveness than just that. The
correct.
Fact that on a podcast day after day, money criticizing Trump.
Wearing shirts with Trump behind bars. I mean, it's endless with this guy.
Well, after he testified, that's when I told Dale on one of our podcasts, I said, you know, these have been great witnesses for the defense. To me, they've been great witnesses for them. And it's like, what are you thinking? But again, they're not. They're
brings us back to the
campaign trail. They're doing all this stuff.
That's what they're doing. But it brings it back to the judge's point extent. Where it's, you know,
even though New York's back in play, I think, for Trump.
That's why it's not working in its own respect. I mean, this Donald Trump, as I've heard him describe, caged tiger, has been able to effectively campaign when he can. He had that rally in Wildwood, New Jersey. And let's even take the lowest estimate. I've heard estimates as high as 100,000 people showed up. Let's say only 20 or 30,000 showed up. That's still a significant amount of people to go to Wildwood, New Jersey.
Yes.
And stand there for hours waiting for this man to come and speak. That shows a certain dedication to him in a Democrat stronghold. He's been able to campaign at firehouses in New York City. He's gone to the South Bronx. He actually went to Upper Manhattan. He should go to the South Bronx at some point. He'll find more support there than he believes. This is backfiring in a way that the Democrats never expected. They continue to underestimate Donald Trump's campaign sales ability.
That's right.
That underestimation is their undoing. Every time they underestimate him, he takes advantage of it.
And that's why
the martyr portion of
that's
your book,
the martyr
right?
portion.
I mean, that's the martyr portion.
That's right.
Yep.
He's being turned into a modern day martyr.
Yep.
And why is he getting all the support? Why is it that after his mugshot photo came out in the Atlanta case, why did that suddenly become a great fundraising tool? Because people, Americans particularly, don't like bullies. They don't like to see people being bullied. There's been arguments made before that Donald Trump himself is a bully. All well and good. Let's even suppose he is. He's being bullied now in a very public way. And people don't like it.
That's right.
That's what's bringing people to his support. Is the more, and I make this point in the book, The Making of a Martyr, that Americans are rallying to his support because we just don't like to see somebody being bullied in such a public fashion.
Correct.
And he's smart enough to capitalize on that and make use of that and say, look at me being bullied here. And people say, that's right. That's what we see.
Yep. You're right. You're absolutely right. And they consider it, when somebody's being bullied, that's an underdog. And generally we cheer for the underdog. I mean, it is literally backfiring on them. I want to switch gears while we still have time to go to the raid on Mar A Lago, which, thank God, we finally had a judge with some sense down in Florida. The whole thing, to me, I think that one, can we say that's basically done now that it's been indefinitely suspended due to this whole document, forging and all that?
Yeah, in a sense. I don't know that that's going to go anywhere anytime soon. Let's put it that way. But I make a point in the book about that case that I haven't heard brought up in the media because I don't think a lot of people understand. I have read the search warrant that was used in Mar A Lago, and I put this in the book. That search warrant is inspecific and overbroad. The Fourth Amendment requires specificity of place to be searched and thing to be searched. It prohibits what are called general search warrants. The British used to come into American homes with a general warrant and say, search the whole place for any contraband you find. And the Fourth Amendment was intended to stop that. The search warrant that we used for Mar A Lago says search all of Mar A Lago for any classified documents or any records or anything that we think you should get that Donald Trump shouldn't have.
Wow.
That's the general warrant. And by the way, it was signed by a magistrate, not a full sitting.
Wow. I didn't know that.
Judge. It was signed by a magistrate. The magistrate had recused himself several months earlier from a case that Donald Trump had brought against Hillary Clinton. That meant he said, I couldn't be fair listening to this case that Trump brought against Hillary Clinton. But a couple of months later, he's signing a search warrant for the search of Mar A Lago. He clearly should have sent that search warrant over to some other judge. This guy, I've already recused myself once. I can't listen to a case involving Donald Trump. He had no such scruples.
Well, how many? Go on. I was just saying, how many Christmas cards did he get where he didn't open it in front of the audience?
He has been on the record before as criticizing Donald Trump. I think before he became a magistrate, if I remember correctly. But that's what I've believed all along is that the evidence that was seized at Mar A Lago should be suppressed because if the search warrant was invalid, then whatever evidence was seized pursuant to that invalid search warrant should be suppressed. So there shouldn't be a case against Donald Trump if there's no evidence. And that's the simple way, the legal way that this should be resolved.
And the sad thing about it is you've got people out there who don't care because there's people going to bring it up. They're still going to bring it up. Even people running against him, they're going to bring that up, even though there's nothing there. There's nothing to see here. So they got done what they wanted to get done.
Well, that's right.
But again, it's one of those things that's backfiring. And it's going to continue.
Well,
So,
luckily we have somebody who never says die. Donald Trump doesn't.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You're right.
How many people would have given up by now?
Most people.
This is crazy.
91 charges. That's a lot to be facing.
Yeah.
But, it seems to me that he's energized by this fight.
Yeah.
That if you recall, looking at, say, Barack Obama after he left the presidency.
Oh my
he
God.
looked tired. His hair was gray.
Yeah.
If you look at what's happening to Joe Biden now, who can barely bring two words together, it's taking its toll. It's a very difficult job.
Yeah.
When Donald Trump leaves, you see somebody who's energized.
The fountain of youth. Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. I mean, it really is something to see.
Yeah, it is something to see. One last case I kind of want to go into before, we have to leave here is, the whole Fani Willis case, which from the beginning to me was, again, another just politically driven, indictment or charge against Donald Trump. The whole RICO charges. Can you explain that? Like, why is this even going anywhere now that whole Fani Willis has been busted doing? I mean, literally, and we know the judge there too. But explain that to us. Why and how could they bring these charges against him?
So Fani Willis has a history from even before she was the district attorney, when she was a deputy district attorney, of bringing RICO charges. And as we know, RICO is originally it's a federal statute, but it's been expanded to several states. It's used to any mob, not necessarily mob in the traditional sense, but any organization that's dedicated to committing criminal activity can be prosecuted as a whole, as an enterprise.
Yes.
Here, the Trump campaign is being considered the criminal enterprise. Now, Willis has a habit of using RICO statutes. She brought a RICO prosecution against the teachers union in Atlanta, saying that they were inflating grades to get additional funding. She's brought a series of RICO cases against rappers and their entourages, claiming they're criminal enterprises. So it's not a surprise that when you only have a hammer, you think every problem looks like a nail.
Yeah.
So sometimes it looked like a RICO nail to her. That's been her pattern in her history. Yeah. That case seems to me more like an old-fashioned profit motive behind it. He was able to hire her lover, pay him exorbitant fees. Yes. And clearly he's been kicking the money back to her through trips or whatever other method. Yeah. Her testimony, she shot herself in the foot, never should have testified. Yeah. But of course she was enraged and thought that she was going to straighten everybody out. Yep. And shot herself in the foot. The judge there wanted to, be reelected, so he split the baby. He knew that he could get rid of Wade without much repercussion, but to get rid of Willis, remove her from the case, would have had political repercussions for him, so he didn't dare tread there.
But legally, he should have, right?
It seemed to me, from the evidence that he had, that there were two parties to that fraud, Willis and Wade, and that it wasn't really proper to leave one of them in place while removing the other. Yeah. The judge blamed him and not her. And
right. That's what I thought. Yep.
They both should have been removed.
Yep. Okay.
It would have been the better course of action, but as I explained, he had political considerations that really he decided splitting the baby was going to be the best for his own career.
Wow. Well, man.
So
what possibly made them think this could stick against President Trump? What did they have?
Well, he's the head of the organization. And so one of the factors in the Atlanta case is, and it's also in the Jack Smith January 6th indictment, is the use of alternate electors. The allegation is that use of these and I address this in the book as well. Okay. This is not a well understood topic. The use of alternate electors has never been deemed illegal before. It's rarely used, but there are instances where political campaigns have elected persons to sit as electors and send them to Washington claiming they have the proper credentials. There is apparently a pattern of the Trump campaign doing something similar. Fani Willis is trying to criminalize that behavior. There's other aspects. Now, you notice that some people have pled guilty in the Willis indictment.
Yes.
Specifically, they're pleading guilty to intimidating some of the election workers, which I don't know how you relate that to Donald Trump, but that's part of the conspiracy. If a drug dealer shoots a rival drug dealer, it's in furtherance of the conspiracy. And that's how they try to relate it back to the head of the conspiracy.
Yeah.
So it's a web. The action of each of the members of the conspiracy are acting in furtherance of the conspiracy to make the enterprise profitable.
Wow.
What I think they're making a mistake on is anytime anybody brings up anything to do with the election, about whether President Trump said that it was stolen from him or not, or anything else, you're bringing up where you now have to present evidence. And there is, in fact, evidence out there where there were we interviewed 2 people who wrote a book who won a court case
Pennsylvania
about the cheating in Pennsylvania.
Fraud.
Do they want that brought up? I mean, could this bring up a whole different can of worms for him? This is what confuses me about them fighting this. I don't understand, trying to get him in trouble for denying the election.
So if we're looking at it from the political point of view, that doesn't concern the persons bringing these cases because they just wanted to sling as much mud as they could before the election. My guess is if Trump were not to win election, a lot of these cases would just suddenly go away. They wouldn't be able to establish the facts. They wouldn't want to proceed with them. They decide that it wasn't worth their effort. I mean, you've heard people in the media say, gee, if he just wouldn't run, these cases could be resolved. I mean, they're telling us the truth for a change. But while he's running, while he's fighting, they're kind of stuck with what they've done. They're stuck with these cases. And of course, he in his defense is able to bring up proof that there was fraud in some of these elections.
Correct.
And that goes to show the reasonableness of his belief that the election was stolen.
Correct. Yeah.
So it's a double-edged sword.
It is. And if it had any one of our last names on it, none of this would even be brought to trial on all these. You know what I'm saying? Like it would not, like these are not. This is Trump, and it's nothing more than election interference, as far as I can tell.
Let's go back to the New York case. I mean, Hillary Clinton's campaign paid for the Steele dossier.
Correct.
We all know that now. And the Federal Elections Commission fined her campaign something like $160,000 for miscategorizing the payments as legal expenses. So,
interesting.
The exact same thing, pretty much, that Donald Trump is being accused of. Why is he prosecuted by Alvin Bragg and she is not? That's the political question.
Wow. That's a good point.
That is a great point.
Interesting. Yeah,
that is absolutely a great point.
Well, I've stated all along. Why are we holding this man to a different standard than we're holding everybody else to?
Because he's uncontrollable.
Why is he?
They can't control him.
And it just bothers me because I'm not saying the guy's perfect at all. I am not saying that. I'm not saying he is without fault. I'm not. But when you have people that have done the same things that he has done, that are walking around, nothing's going on with them. But by God, when they can go back and try and find something that they think he did, boom, they try to go after him. It's weird.
Republican.
Now that's I get it.
You're a Republican. You're going to face the full measure of the law. You're going to face sanction and censure for your actions.
Correct.
And many of those who received such sanctions deserve them. But it's disheartening when you see one party's members receiving these sanctions, and the exact same conduct occurs by members of the other party, and they don't receive these sanctions. They receive, sometimes they receive accolades.
That's right. Sometimes they get high cabinet positions.
The guy who pulled the fire alarm to keep the vote from going through. He
who was a teacher
Yeah.
A principal of a school knows darn well what a fire alarm is. And,
It's crazy. It's
I doubt that.
Yeah.
just
Very
insane.
Absolutely. Judge, tell us again about the book. Tell us where they can get it from, and maybe what's next for you.
So it's The Making of a Martyr,
Mm-hmm.
the analysis of the indictments of Donald Trump. It's on Amazon.com. If you go to Amazon, look up the name of the book and my name, John Wilson, you'll see it. You can get it in paperback. There is an ebook available as well.
Okay.
Yep.
I can't advertise it on Amazon. They banned it from advertising. When I tried to set up an ad campaign, they told me, "Oh no, it's an election year. We're not able to advertise a book of this nature."
Right.
And meanwhile, there's a series of books written by Trump about Trump,
Yep.
written by Biden about Biden. AI must have caught me.
Oh my
But
God.
I let people know that's what's happening. So that's why
This
I'm
is
trying to do this
insane.
myself if I can.
Yeah.
But it's available there on Amazon. They will sell it for me.
Yeah.
I also I'll be attending the South Florida Fairgrounds gun show coming up on Memorial Day weekend. I'll be there on both Saturday and Sunday. You can see me. I'll autograph a copy of the book for you as well.
Awesome.
You can also see me on Substack. I have a regular blog there.
Do you? Okay.
Daily Outrage, it's called.
Nice.
Find me on Substack. And of course, I always write for usagovpolicy.com.
Okay.
Many of the chapters of the book originally appeared as columns
they did.
for usagovpolicy.com. And so I took those columns and expanded them into this book.
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing the same right now with another book I'm working on. It's called Not Wasting a Crisis, the Lawless Biden Administration.
Mm-hmm.
Over the years, I've been looking over the excesses of the Biden administration in particular, as well as local and state governments during the COVID crisis.
Yeah.
Just the abuse and misuse of emergency powers.
Mm-hmm.
But what I conclude in the book is that the one place where we were able to see our freedoms restored was in the courts.
Yeah.
And I go through some of the U.S. Supreme Court cases that slap down the Biden administration's attempts at exceeding their authority, including the vaccine mandate, for instance, is one of those issues.
Yeah.
That should be coming out shortly.
Nice. Good. Look forward to that as well.
Forgiving the student loan debt that's out there too.
That's going to be a couple of chapters in there as well.
All right.
Student loan debt.
Yeah.
Although I have to be a little more equivocal about that issue. Congress may have given the authority over the past 30 years or so to the education department to forgive student loan debts. It's a complicated issue. The problem was the Biden administration was trying to use the HEROES Act, trying to use an emergency measure to forgive student loans. They were slapped down by the Supreme Court, of course, because that's not what the HEROES Act was intended. The HEROES Act was intended for, but as I go through in the book, it's very possible that Congress already gave the executive branch the authority to engage in some level of student forgiveness.
Why does that not surprise me? Why does that not surprise me?
Giving away their authority.
Yeah.
It's not surprising that they did so in this one.
Wow.
Well, I'm sure we're all waiting for our check to reimburse us for what we've paid
we've paid our student loans. Yeah, it just hasn't arrived yet.
Years ago, I'd like that money back.
Yeah, it'd be nice. It'd be nice. Yeah, we could all use it.
Compounded
Judge,
with what the money is today.
Yeah. Judge, thank you for coming on. It has been an absolute pleasure. We would love to have you I would like to get into maybe there'll be some, clearer action on these indictments in the future, or maybe we can talk about the presidential immunity that's a case that's gone up in front of the Supreme Court. I'd like to get involved with that maybe a little bit more. So if you don't mind, we'd love to have you back. It's been absolutely our pleasure and a very, very big learning experience for me. And we will keep pushing that book, The Making of a Martyr. Look it up on Amazon.
I've got it in my cart. So it'll be
look at them. Like I said, John, and it's probably clearly obvious that one of us reads, one of us watches movies. I'm the movie guy. Jim's the reader, so, I look forward to the film Making of a Martyr. So,
starring Dale.
Yeah. I'd like to play the part of Michael Cohen. That'd be great. If you can catch me. Judge, again, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure for us. And we look forward to talking to you soon.
Same here. Thank you very much.
Thank
you
you,
take
Your
care.
Honor.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Jim, your thoughts first. I did all this talking in the beginning. Didn't let you say a damn word.
Well, we've talked about it. We've read what experts or so-called experts say about what's going on, and you get from the left. Obviously, this is great witnesses. They're doing. You get from the right. What are they doing? What This guy knows. I mean, this guy knows, and he is truly blind when it comes to courts. Okay, he has a leaning. Okay, he does have a leaning, but you will not see it in his writings, and you will not see it as he talks, because he's speaking from the law, right? I mean, God,
the
that's
law.
weird, right?
Isn't that bizarre? The judges
confirming some of the things that we thought, but bringing up some things like, oh, okay, that's interesting. That's a different way to look at it. So,
including the whole reason why they were able to bring Trump to trial in New York, because of the statute of limitations, using the law that he wasn't a resident, so therefore those years don't count. But he was president.
The tie into Hillary was interesting.
The tie into Hillary was very interesting. He had some great takes, just great knowledge, absolutely great human being. Total pleasure for us.
One of my favorites. We got a lot of them, but we need to, especially when he gets his other book done, we need to have him on. Yeah,
the judge will be back on for sure. Yep. There's no doubt about it. Like we said, he is our legal expert at this point. So he's trapped now. He's our go-to guy for that kind of stuff. I was very, very impressed with his knowledge. The fact that the book, The Making of a Martyr, you can get it on Amazon, please. I think you heard that advertising is not allowed.
It's 191 pages, folks.
Yep.
Will
Quick
not
read.
Take you long to read, right?
Yep. Like he had mentioned too, a lot of discussions in there and words that we can understand as laymen. Obviously, he said, you got to put the legal aspect in there. There's going to be, those kind of things, because that's absolutely what it's all about. But he wrote it in a way where here's the simple explanation, as simple as it can be, on why these charges are brought and what the what they mean for both the prosecution and the defense. And it's clear the prosecution, as we've seen and heard and known, and it's confirmed. And confirmed in this book, have very, very weak, if no cases at all.
What did you think of and folks, I'm sure you heard it, but if you didn't, we'll quick, we'll bring it up. What did you think his comment was, that in his time, he has never seen it to where the felony charge is not known?
It's not known.
We are going through this trial. The jury is listening to this evidence
without
and
knowing.
There is no formal felony charge.
There's no charge.
So are you literally leaving it up to the jury, who has no idea, to say if this was a felony or not?
It was interesting in knowing the jurors, and we did review them, that he's right about the two attorneys that are on there. Could be total left leaning. 87% we found out are Biden voters on that jury. Clearly, I think that's a win for Trump, that it's not 100%.
Wouldn't it be something if he got full acquittal?
Oh my God! If
I think that would be a story.
That'd be a major.
I still
story
think it's going to be.
It should have never been to court, and so he should have never had. And we know that. Yeah, we all know that. And the 125 million voters that will vote, that will actually vote for Trump this time, whether they get counted or not, who knows? But they know it as well, but to have it actually publicly on record and all over the news cycles, which how quick that'll go away. If it's a full acquittal, boy, George Stephanopoulos will stop talking about it now, won't he?
Do you hear about we don't hear about the top secret documents that he has at Mar A Lago, do we?
Nope, we aren't. And boy, the Fani Willis case down, the RICO charges in Georgia. Well,
Jack Smith
maybe we shouldn't
trial
talk
in
about
D.C.
that. Yeah, that's right.
This, folks, I think they're realizing America is finally wising up. And
well, listen. In Manhattan, when you have Stormy Daniels and Michael Cohen as your star witnesses, first of all, what is Stormy? First of all, Stormy Daniels. What does she have to do with bookkeeping portion of it? Nothing. He told you why they brought it in
there
to embarrass
him, look bad,
to make him look
for
bad.
what? Yep.
To try to find the crime because, like you said, they haven't formally presented one.
As far as me go, as far as I'm concerned, they had her on only to embarrass him. There was nothing she brought. There was nothing she brought. She owes him $500,000. So, I mean,
$500,000.
So they only brought her on, one, because the prosecutions are perverts and they wanted to hear the story, and probably they were jealous that they would never get Stormy Daniels because they can't afford her.
Well, you could now,
or whatever the hell. But that was totally, and again, and I did like how it confirmed us, how we always felt that, God, so far you would think that all these witnesses are the witnesses for the defense. They're great witnesses.
They're great witnesses for the defense. They're cross-examining.
But Judge Wilson, he brought a perspective that you and I just assumed.
Yep.
I mean, he did. We just assumed. I mean, we hear these, and even some of their legal experts on CNN and MSNBC were having a hard time. Why this is going on?
Trying to sell it to the American people.
5 weeks. This trial should never went.
Yeah,
it should never have gone anywhere. It should have been downgraded to a misdemeanor.
Yeah.
All right, but we are 5 weeks now, so there is only one reason, and one reason only. And folks down in Manhattan, they are wasting your money.
Yep, they are.
This is taxpayer money that they're wasting time on this. They don't care.
Yeah.
And
they don't care.
I think now I would not be surprised if President Trump wins New York.
Yeah,
because the Democrats
I think
will
it's
not
in play.
expect it. Yep, and if it gets closer and closer, look, Hochul keeps opening her mouth.
Yep.
About how black people don't know how to use computers. I know that has nothing to do with this, but all they got to do.
But it's all part of the political atmosphere.
Yep. Keep opening your mouth, folks, because you're proving what you and I have said before.
Exactly.
Who's the party of racist?
Yeah, who is? I wonder. Yeah, they see what's going on, and there's I'll tell you what, there's a lot more. Even people who've committed crimes in New York that are out, or even they're like, even they're thinking, wait a second, like this isn't
for that. For that being said,
they sympathize with him, huh?
What about the judge from the January 6th that he talked about?
I know.
Of course, I don't want to try you. I want to try the person that's responsible for you being here. Folks, she's doing the trial.
She's doing the trial.
The judge for this trial.
Yes, she's the one who's putting all of these people away in jail, like guests we've had on the show, their spouses. Yeah.
Longer than other judges.
Longer than other judges are. Correct. Yep.
That's a new thing we learned. At least I did.
That's what I did
know
too.
That until he said something. So that was interesting. Wish we would have known that before we talked to
Sarah. Yeah.
Sarah.
I know.
Really
me too.
nice,
I don't know who presided over.
Yeah, that would have been interesting to see
Colt's trial, but that would have been interesting. But anyways, Judge, amazing guest. Thank you so much for coming on. We really, folks, go support him. Get that book. It's $15 on Amazon or something. Isn't
it won't take long to read. He said he tried to write a review
because that's important, because the reviews are what generate the interest on there. And the more reviews, the more people, it brings people's attention to it. And he's not allowed to advertise, as you heard, because it's an election year. Although you can find 4,000 books on there about Joe Biden and January 6th and all the other bullshit. Yeah. But his, he's not allowed to
but conservative voices aren't being silenced.
Nope, not at all.
Christine,
not at all.
Christine,
they are not. To take a line from another podcast and friends of ours, you're right. Yeah. They are being silenced. Folks, that's all for today. We just wanted to bring you. Yeah, we're still on YouTube. I don't know how,
I don't either. They haven't hit the algorithm yet.
They haven't yet. It will, and then that's the end of that. folks, again, thank you for tuning in for another episode. I know we bombarded you this week with some episodes. We hope you enjoy them all. Please give us a review, like, follow, and share on Rumble. Share these episodes. Share these
especially
interviews.
These.
Yeah, especially these ones.
Because it's interesting. I mean, even to your liberal friends out there, it's very important. They probably won't look at it, but it's important for them to see that.
Keep pushing it.
This is all political.
They do.
You don't like the guy, fine. I didn't like Barack Obama, but I'm not sitting here saying, well, all these things we can probably try him for. I mean, look at the Clintons.
Barack Obama. It's still
to me, the Clintons could be the easiest conviction of anywhere, but we're not pushing it.
No RICO charges for the Clinton Foundation?
And they're the head crime family.
They're the head crime family. I know.
I mean,
they are.
I honestly think the outfit in Chicago, you know, I think they think, wow, they're mean.
Wow, yeah, we're not messing with the Clintons, you know. And of course, they got their boy Fredo.
Al Capone's scared of
the presidential office.
If he was still alive, he would be afraid of the Clintons.
He would be afraid of the Clintons. Allegedly.
Sorry.
Allegedly. Anyways, Jim, thank you again for your contribution. We appreciate it, folks. Thank you all for your listenership. Again, like, follow, and share on Rumble. Give us a review. Go to Amazon, purchase The Making of a Martyr. That's where you can buy it. And support the judge. It's worth it. It's absolutely worth it. Folks, we will see you next week with a couple episodes and some more interviews. Until then, everybody have a great weekend. Jim, you and your family have a great weekend.
You too as well.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. And folks, we'll talk to you next week. Jim, goodbye, sir.
You've been listening to the Two Guys, One Coup podcast with Dale and Jim. Remember, you can watch on YouTube and Rumble and listen on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or anywhere you listen to podcasts. And if you like what you hear, go ahead and give us a 5-star review. We really appreciate it, and it helps others find us when searching for podcasts. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook and TikTok. Just search for Two Guys, One Coup. That's the number 2, guys, and the number 1, coup, C-O-U-P. Thanks again for listening to the Two Guys, One Coup podcast, and God bless the United States of America.